Happy New Year. I'd like to call the Rules and City Government Committee meeting to order. Please note for the record, Alderman Arnett and Alderman Schandermeyer are present. I'll entertain a motion to approve the agenda. Alderman Schandermeyer, do you want to amend the agenda?
Yes, Madam Chair. Motion to amend the agenda. I would like to add 02522 to finish up our discussion on it from our previous meeting.
Okay, and 025 is?
02522, prevailing wage.
Prevailing wage. Okay, so is there a second?
Second.
All in favor of amending the agenda to include 025, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, approval of the minutes from the December 2nd meeting.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor of approving the minutes as written, please say aye.
I do want to make a comment. The minutes talk about who moved the amendment, but it does not indicate the votes on each.
Your mic, please.
The minutes for the discussion on 025 indicate who moved the amendment, but it does not indicate for any of them that I can find what the vote was. I mean, my recollection was that we did approve all of them, but there's nothing in the minutes, so I think that's a problem.
For clarification, Ms. Eldridge just indicated that when it's a voice vote, it simply says carried on voice vote. So the assumption would be that it's unanimous.
Where does it say that?
Right after where it was seconded, carried on voice vote. For each one of them, if you go to the very end.
Oh, there it is. Okay, I see it. Okay,
Yeah.
Gotcha.
And I assume that if there is a dissent, then it would say what the vote is. Are we getting some legal opinion from over here? Okay. All right, Alderman Schandermeyer.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I do believe that was a fair assessment of it. It's pretty easy to do a roll call if one person dissents on a voice vote in a committee of three, so.
Well, I think we'll leave that to Ms. Eldridge to make sure it's taken care of. So, all right, thank you. So the vote on the approval of the minutes, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
No.
No.
I still
Opposed?
don't see carried on voice vote for every one of these.
I went through it, and you can go back and find it, but it does say carried on voice vote, where it says second, and then that's followed by,
All right.
maybe it's
Okay.
not on every one of them.
I'm trying
So-
to find it.
Question.
But I'm going to go to Alderman Schandermeyer.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Alderman Arnett, would it make you feel more comfortable if we amended it to make sure that it said carried on voice vote after each of the amendments, or?
Yeah, I think that would be, okay, so like here's down on page 5, down at the bottom, I see carried on voice votes. It's very hard to find these.
Well, I'm going to ask us to postpone action on this right now so that we can get the
Okay.
business on our agenda first.
right.
And then we have amended it to include 025.
Thank you.
But in all fairness, we're going to go into the City of Annapolis Public Ethics Law 03322. Welcome, gentlemen. Please introduce yourselves and tell us what this is all about.
Kevin Chase, Chair of the Ethics Commission. The state of Maryland has updated their requirements for the code, and they have mandated a number of additions to the code that have all been spelled out, mostly related to changes related to some state organizations that need to be reported on if employees or elected officials are associated with them. We've also made some clerical changes to make the code easier to read for the layperson. In addition, we have suggested we raise the amount from 35 to 45 for elected officials to accept meals and drinks from others. We did that because of the inflation that has happened since the code was created in 2008. We did look at taking the $20 limit for employees up to 25, but the state said that that is a hard number in the state code, and we cannot go against that. So that's the 10,000 foot view.
Do you have a, and I'm looking at the legislation, and the changes are sprinkled throughout. Do you have like a one-pager that says, these are the things that this new
Yes.
code?
Yes, we do, and we.
Mr. Dozel, would you introduce yourself,
Oh, I'm
please?
sorry, Jim
Good.
Holzlaw.
Turn on your.
I'm past chairman of the Ethics Commission, and are we on now? Good.
Thank you.
My comment was, there is a a document which was given to you as an attachment to amendment, as an attachment to
I see two attachments, both letters, one regarding the
yes.
changes to the ethics law. Is that the one?
Yes,
You're referring to?
On November 15th.
That's August 26th, okay. And the other is November 15th, yes. Okay, if you would like to highlight a little more specifically so we can follow in whichever document you prefer, whether it's that letter or the ordinance itself.
Let's go.
Probably the ordinance is easier to follow as far
Okay.
as line numbers. Otherwise, we're dealing with paragraphs and subparagraphs and so forth. So I would suggest that we look at the first.
It looks like in the first couple of pages, the changes simply change from the wording to the actual numerical numbers.
Yeah,
Yes.
that was part of one of the readability updates that we've made. Most of the state is going away from, writing things out and putting in numbers. It's more approachable, so to speak. Like page 2 is a lot of those. Same with page 3. We have also added a definition for recuse, as well as the state has asked for a quasi-governmental entity. That's what's driving the University of Maryland health system you see sprinkled through the code now. We were working on clarifying on page 5 when somebody should recuse themselves from deliberation of a committee or council or a commission. Obviously, when we make changes, there's a lot of numbering changes, so you guys are used to that. On page 7, this one is very specific to, on the top, very specific COMAR insertion, designating what, about how they're being represented especially for counties and municipal corporations. When you get down into acceptable gifts, that's where we move from 35 to 45. You'll see the $20 being taken to 25, and then in the amendment, that takes that back out. On page 8, more definition of former officials, employees. Now on page 10, you'll see that section 4. You might remember the University of Maryland medical system was in the news a few years ago. That's why it's there. And that's also with the state and local government and the not quasi-governmental entities. And, moving through a lot of number changes. More on top of page 12 with more disclosure information. Same thing down in the gifts with disclosing where they got them if it's a municipal corporation. All through 14, more of the same definitions because a lot of things repeat especially when we're talking about building out forms. You guys have one disclosure form, and then employees and commission members have a different, less onerous form. That's why it's in here twice. Mm-hmm. As you know, when people tend to go afoul of the ethics rules in a partial way, they like to update them. That's why this has been driven. Some updates in 14 and 15 related to trusts and estates from the state. And then we go through 16, some more on the $25, as well as simplifying the code. And a lot of the renumbering keeps going on. There's a new section on retaliation. That's from the state. We've removed a financial disclosure for housing authority of the city of Annapolis. That was a holdover from the last change. There was a missed redaction when we removed the housing commission from under the ethics commission purview.
Does that mean they are not bound by our ethics rules?
They're not exempted from.
They're
the
not
rules.
exempted from?
Yes, sorry.
Okay.
What they were, in one place it said they were under, in another place they said they were not.
Okay. I think we have a question.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Gentlemen, thank you for kind of going through this with us. I have a quick question on the retaliation stuff on page 18, line 28. Do we have a definition in this ordinance or in the state ordinance that or in the state code that I just couldn't find, or is that just up to an official of some kind to gauge whether or not it's retaliation or not?
You mean what the definition of retaliation or what the recourse is?
Is there a legal definition of retaliation in this ordinance or in the state code that this ordinance is referencing?
Okay.
I could not find it, but
In here? Yep.
I could have just missed it. That's
There is no definition in the code here. Tripp, are you aware of any specific?
I'm not aware of any in the state code, but I can take a look.
okay.
See if, respectfully, if you missed it. I'm not aware of it myself.
That is the state code is very complicated and long, and I could have just missed it. I'm just wondering if there was anything in there, or if it's up to an individual like judge or arbitrator to decide if something is or is not a retaliation. It could just be a state has to put something in there for us to do it. I don't
Right.
know.
I mean, yeah, it's,
Well, I'm looking at what it says, and it kind of defines what it's referring to in the lines 29 through 31, does it not?
this is, I mean, Tripp will definitely correct me if I'm overreaching here, but this is saying if the individual comes to the ethics commission and their managers or their bosses cannot retaliate against them for coming to the commission, right? So how retaliation is addressed is would be more of an HR issue, right? Yeah.
More of an HR issue as opposed to an ethics issue? I'm not clear.
I'm not exactly clear. Can you restate that question?
Well, you read the code. It says an official or an employee may not retaliate against an individual for reporting or participating in the investigation of a potential violation of the local ethics law or ordinance. So it's not becoming on us with regards to the retaliation, is that if they participate in our investigations or they report to us, they're not supposed to be retaliated by an official or an employee. So if an employee, let's say an employee comes to us with a potential violation, a retaliation would be if their supervisor was doing something inappropriate. It sounds to me like the state is giving protection to those employees or any individual that is retaliated against.
But somewhere, either in an HR provision or in the state law, there is something that defines what retaliation is, so that way we can make sure that our employees are properly protected. is that a safe assumption, or?
I don't have an answer to that, but like I said, I'd be happy to check.
Thanks. I'm not going to blow up the bill over this or anything. I'm just curious.
That's not under the purview of our commission, so I don't want to overreach on that.
Makes perfect sense to me.
So rather, that becomes an HR issue, it sounds like to me. And Tripp, if you will make sure. Okay, thank you. Go on.
Gotcha.
Oh. On page 19, we basically took the complaint procedure from a paragraph to a list of bullets to make it more readable. You learn when you learn reading habits have changed over time.
Okay. Thank you. Question, Alderman Arnett?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Back on page 8, starting on line 14, where we've added "or former official or employee," there's no time limit here. Does that mean in perpetuity? If you were an employee 20 years ago, you're still bound by this?
If the information, I would assume that if the information is still confidential. It's disclosure of confidential information. I think the state is backing up. There are other laws that prevent or against disclosure of confidential information. So the state's purpose here was, in my opinion, was to make sure that that's put also in the ethics code.
Who has purview over the former official or employee? I mean, they're no longer part of the city government. So I'm just,
Well,
it just feels like this is very open-ended.
with regards to, we do issue opinions to former officials and former employees all the time for other portions of the code with regards to, participating in activities that they were involved with when they were working at the city. So
My assumption in reading all of this is we don't really have much choice, right? I mean, none of these are our changes. These are changes that are bringing us up to be consistent with state law. So my question isn't really of you, it's really what was the state thinking? And it does seem, I wonder who goes after a former employee or official. They're not part of the city anymore, so presumably somebody else is going after them. But, I'm going to vote for this because I think this is pretty much fait accompli. We need to do it to be compliant with the state. So I'm not arguing, it's just idle curiosity here.
Well, Tripp, you're more closer to, HIPAA violations and, other confidential information, disclosing of salaries or any other type of confidential information. Sometimes you guys have settlements that are confidential.
Sure.
Those all have their own recourses.
Correct. By private parties. I can't fathom off the top of my head who. It really depends on the situation, but certainly there may be instances where a private party has an interest in, however, some of this confidential information remaining confidential for a long time.
Yep.
For me, I have confidential agreements with my employer. In addition, I have, certain government clearances that, that stays with you forever.
So Madam Chair, unless there's other questions, I would make a motion that we recommend favorably.
Second?
Okay, if there's no further discussion, all in favor of giving O3322 a favorable recommendation, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, gentlemen.
you.
Yep.
A lot of work.
If we could add something, We do have the approval from the state as of yesterday.
All right,
The two letters are attached
yeah, to our package.
to the legislation, so
Oh,
they'll
I
go.
didn't realize. Good.
The one that came in yesterday was already attached?
The one from, well, there's
State
one from
ethics.
November 15th, and the other was from August, I believe,
Well,
August
no,
26th.
January 5th.
Yeah, we have the January 5th letter.
Okay, good.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry.
Yep.
That's very,
Yep, that's-
very efficient. Could we make a request?
Yes.
The bill is currently sponsored by Mayor Buckley and Alderwoman O'Neill. We would request all alderpersons also co-sponsor the bill. We'd like to see, from our commission, we'd like to see full support of the bill in that fashion. Gives a visible, in this day and age, it kind of gives a visible reinforcement from you guys with regards to ethics code.
Well, I can speak for myself. I don't have a problem at all signing on as a sponsor, and I suspect my colleagues will be willing to do the same here, and we can ask of the same from our colleagues on the floor. Alderman? Senator?
Quick point of order question, Madam Chair. I apologize. I thought of this after we voted on it. Do we want to do an opinion on Amendment 1? It's pretty basic, but I think we didn't rule favorably on it.
We did not. And is there only one? Both corrections are included in Amendment 1. You're absolutely right. I didn't scroll all the way down to see Amendment 1, which was the dollar amount. So
I have a point of order.
I would entertain a motion to approve, give a favorable recommendation to Amendment 1
Second.
on 03322.
You're seconded, I guess I'm reading it.
I know. Thank you. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
And then I don't know whether we take another position to approve 033 as amended. I guess we do. That's what we're going to do.
Would we have
I'll
to?
entertain a motion. It's been moved and
Second.
second that we approve 033 as amended. Please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay. And now you have five sponsors. So you're golden no matter what, but I'm sure you'll get the other
Okay,
four sponsors.
thank you. And thank you for your service on the council. Appreciate it.
Well, thank you. You guys put in a lot of time also, and we recognize that. So I want to
Appreciate
say thank you.
Yep. Yeah. Have a great weekend.
Okay, and we don't have anyone for general discussion, rental assistance. I'm sure that came before us because of changes. It's a draft. So we can go on to 025 without objection. Yes.
I believe that there is a 30-day period once a procedure, a rule change is presented, that the Rules Committee has a 30-day period to either opine on it, or if not opining on it, it automatically becomes a rule and procedure. We're probably over 30 days anyway, and my review of this, I wouldn't know how to question this if I had to. I think it's an update of the income amounts on page, 3 or whatever, with income amounts by household size, which
Page
again,
2.
yeah, page 2. I'm fine with it. Do we think that we need a presentation?
Well, I thought it was required that somebody come and
Well, that
present.
is correct
to
also,
us.
yes.
Whether we feel it's necessary, I guess this body can take a position on it in spite of.
Well,
So it's
it
your-
would seem to me that we'd either take a position or we ask for this to be postponed until we have someone come and present it to us.
I am good with postponing action on it
Okay.
until the
I'll
next
make that
meeting.
motion.
And we would ask that Ms. Wellman, I think she would be the one who oversees this program to be with us. Is there an objection, or is there a motion to postpone action?
I said I move that we postpone.
Second?
I'll second it.
Okay.
I don't think there's a ticking clock on this one yet.
Well, since our action is simply for acknowledgement, really.
Well, no, we could, I mean, if we see something in any of these new rules and regulations that we don't like, we have the option of changing the code under which this falls. So
Or
that's the
sending
only.
it back to
Yeah, right.
the department that has.
The only question I have is, I'm assuming the only part that's new is the information on page 2 that has the changes in the income levels, but since there's no bolding or underlining to indicate what is different from current policy, it's a little hard to know.
Well, but this is a new policy, so there wouldn't be
Okay?
anything to change, even though there is some underlining, but I'm not sure where that fits.
That underlining is just style changes from the Office of Law.
Well, and that's my confusion, because I don't know what that, so, but there's underlining on page 1, number 2, so, but we'll have the opportunity to ask. So there's a motion to postpone action on the rental assistance program. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. And we'll ask Ms. Wellman or whomever to please attend the next meeting so we can flesh out what the change is, or, what we need to be aware of. Okie dokie, going on to 025. We had addressed the first 7 amendments, the Schandelmeyer amendments.
Correct?
And Alderman Schandelmeyer, if you will indulge us and briefly go through what those amendments are. I'm expecting it to be a brief review of those 7 amendments, so that we,
Most of them were shifting the definition of manager from the finance director to the city manager's position. That was Amendment 1. Amendment 1A also just clarifies city manager or his or her designee to provide a little extra flexibility on that front. Amendment 2 eliminated the appeals process in it, and that was because it was already covered by state law, according to our Director of Public Works and our city manager and our finance director. Amendment number 3 was the eliminating the appropriate wage deductions portion, because that was already covered by state law, so they believed that that would be able to be sufficient in that front, and it saved a lot of oversight and time in our internal offices. Let's see, that's Amendment 7, 6, 5, 4. Number 4 was probably the most significant policy change, I believe, where it eliminates the best efforts to hire 51% of city or county residents. We changed that to, we'll make best efforts to hire city or county residents, and we got rid of the 51 because that really helped with overall flexibility, and it saved some hiring and lifting on part of our procurement offices. 5 was because I made a goof drafting the bill, and I wrote the Annapolis Public Information Act, and such a thing does not exist, and so it is the Maryland Public Information Act that we should be referencing. Amendment 6 is changes a shall to a may for handling public information requests. Amendment 7 gives a little bit more flexibility to the director for rules and guidelines. And I think I skipped amendment. No, I think I got them all. Did I skip any?
well, our list is kind of out of order.
We had moved on
So,
from.
2 is at the end, and I'm looking for 8.
Oh.
Was there an 8?
I thought there was an 8. Is there?
I don't think.
I don't believe there was an 8
Just a 7.
submitted by me, no.
Okay. I do have some questions, but I'm gonna wait until Alderman Arnett has an opportunity to present his amendments.
Yep. Thank you, Madam Chair. First of all, I did find every one of these amendments has a carried on voice votes in the minutes, so that is addressed. I would request, though, that we get the minutes attached to the agenda so that if we want to go back and review these things, we can have it all in the electronic record. The first thing I noted was during the discussion with Director, or then City Manager Gerald, I guess, on page 3, on line 9, he noted that that's number B should be struck, acquisition of property, that he felt that was not germane to this particular legislation. I don't know what your feelings are, Alderman, but.
Can you give me the page and line number again?
Yeah,
I
page
apologize.
3, line 9.
Thank you.
It's subsection B under 3, capital project. And he's saying that, he said in his testimony that A and C were relevant, but B was not germane to this particular code.
That was something copied from what the county had implemented. If our director does not see that as germane, I personally, I don't see an issue with striking it. Like, it's buying land. It's buying land. It's not a work area.
Well, property doesn't have a wage associated with it, so I think that's why he made the comment.
Yeah, so if that makes my colleague and the director more comfortable, I am more than fine with striking it.
So I would make Arnett Amendment number 1 on page 3, line 9, starting at line 9, strike line 9 and 10.
I will second Arnett Amendment 8, which for our notes-taking purposes is on page 3, striking line 9 and 10. Is that correct?
Yes,
9 and 10?
Correct.
right, that whole subsection B. The rest of these were cleanups like should have been caught in amendment number 1. I notice on page 9, line 4, it still says director. Line 8, it still says director.
Well, with what we had done in the top, we had just went ahead and defined director as city manager and its designee, and then I believe you covered that in Arnett Amendment 1A, which just would have gone through the first reader and replaced that in the actual code itself instead of going director.
So the same thing obtains on page 12,
Yes, I
the 3
believe
instances of director there.
that was my remembrance, recollection, and interpretation of Arnett Amendment 1A.
I'm looking for 1A. I see 1. So where is 1A?
I don't see 1A in the minutes.
It's here in.
Oh, it's in the bottom of page 1?
It's not, I'm looking in the notes, and I'm looking at the legislation. Actually, I'm not seeing the amendments.
Right here, Madam Chair. Shoot.
These amendments are numbered differently. In Legislar, there are 11 amendments.
Phew. You're kidding me.
I'm just looking at what it says. The
Okay.
first one,
I'm only-
well, let's see. First reading, second reading, amendment 1.
Oh, those aren't the 11 you're.
9.
Yeah, those. It's still only 7. You're referring to number of attached documents. So
3, 4,
1 is.
6, 8. That's what I'm looking at. So I see these are I'm looking for 1A. Here's 1A, the Arnett Amendment. So that is attached on
And
Legislar.
does it hit the ones on page, does it include changes on page?
So I'll read it out for you, Alderman Arnett, if that's all right. Might be easiest, and if you notice something I'm missing, we'll add it on there. So Amendment 1A goes down and does, like Amendment 1, city manager means the City of Annapolis manager or their designee who administers and enforces the city prevailing wage requirements under this title. And then it goes down and says, on page 3 for 5, renumber definitions numerical order. On page 6 in line 17, page 7 in line 20.
Wait, slow
I apologize.
First of all, it strikes 5 and 6, or 5 and 6, and creates a new 5.
Correct.
Right. Okay,
You're looking at the actual legislation, right? So it strikes the definition for department and for director, and changes it to city manager.
Correct. And then it also does the same thing, city manager or his/her designee, which gives the city manager the ability to put it on to another designee.
right.
It then does the same thing on page 6, line 17, page 7 on line 25,
Oh, wait a minute, slow down. Page 6
line 17.
doesn't have city manager or director. Is that a new line 17? We're striking lines 6 through 17.
Do you have your
Yeah, let me go back.
star up?
Yeah, let me get that.
Because it does say renumber the definitions, so it would shift things around.
Line 17. My line 17 on page 6 is post-employment limitation or restriction.
But there was like some striking and readjusting and renumbering for the original line 1 or amendment 1. So my understanding is amendment 1A
There's
did
in
it.
a 17, you're right. You know, I part of the confusion is the new formatting. Anyway.
I believe 1A takes care of that, but I am more than fine if you want to add add amendment 9 and
I think
just super
Just
clarify it.
on page 9, there's tweaks that need to be made, and then on page, same thing on page 12, page 11, and then page 12. But I'm wondering if this isn't, just like in congressional language, they say that the federal clerk will make such amendments throughout the document to make it consistent. Can we assume that our clerk will do that for this, just to make all of the city manager or designees consistent throughout the document?
Well, I think we should be able to, but I think it would be with a request for this legislation.
Right.
Because I don't think we could assume that that would be done across the board for everything.
I think you're right.
So, you know, along with this amendment, which is different, because I'm still looking at 1 in one document and 1A in another. So there is some confusion here. That there should be a notation at the end of the legislation that says all examples of use of city manager should reflect city manager or his or her designee.
I am fine. I was under the impression that 1A does that, but if not, I'm fine with that, or I'm fine just being as clear as possible that that is what we mean. So, sounds good.
Thank you.
I
Good thing
approve.
you wore your tennis shoes today, girl.
So, yeah, sounds good. I approve. All good. Thank you. So, Alderman Arnett, would you like to tell?
Yeah, I just wanted to clean it up. I don't think it's substantive, but it is neater if we're consistent throughout the document.
Well, I guess the question, and this is from Ms. Jackson, Jackson, I don't call you Johnson. Which version is going to be in our agenda for Monday night?
This one.
Okay, because we don't have 1A in Granicus.
So that it can't go as amended until after it's on the second.
Well, it hasn't been amended, but it should show up, because how can we address it if it's not?
I'll ask Ms. Virginia.
Okay,
Also for,
so, but we do need to recognize that there is a 1A. 1 is here, but 1A is not.
also, I was gonna, just as a point of clarification, I was gonna request with city staff that we not put it on the agenda, even if it passes out of committee today, that we put it on the agenda for the 23rd, not the 9th.
Okay, that would be great too, because then we'll have plenty of time to make sure the right versions of.
So,
1A has to be attached.
1A is
Yeah. I mean, none of these amendments, when they were originally attached, were voted on before. But we need 1A. So is it only 1A? What's your second? You had 3 amendments. Did
No,
you
they were
all
additional
addressing-
pages where director appeared, and it should have been city manager or designee, or however we're going to ultimately fix it to be consistent throughout the document.
So is that all of the amendments on pages 6, 7, 8, and 9?
Well, it's 9, it's 11, and it's 12. So I don't have I can't figure out the 1A that you're looking at. But I've got to get out of this. And
I
go
found
to-
1A in Munis, but 1 in Granicus.
No,
what are you looking at?
No.
Legislar.
It's Granicus,
Or Legistar.
yeah. Now, Granicus owns Legistar, but apparently the Granicus that we have is not always consistent with the Legistar that is, and this is another,
That's my point exactly.
Exactly.
So
Yeah.
Granicus does not have 1A. It has 7 amendments, and they're all the
Right.
Shannemeyer amendments.
so this,
Legistar has 1A.
and this is an issue for the city clerk because IT disavows any ownership of Granicus or iLegislate because they didn't purchase it and they don't maintain it.
I'm not going to speak on that because I would use words I shouldn't. So, but we should be clear that there's a 1A. There's 7 amendments, and then there's a 1A that's Alderman Arnett's amendment. And then Alderman, your 1 amendment is inclusive of all of the changes on pages 6, 7, 8, 9, 11, and 12.
Yes.
Okay?
Then there was true standalone.
Wait a minute, before we go on, Ms. Jackson, did you get a 6, 7, 8, 9, 11, and 12? Yes. Okay. Now, Alderman Shannemeyer?
Yes, and then if I'm remembering this correctly, there was the true standalone Arnett Amendment 8, which was to remove land procurement out of this
Right.
provision.
Is that a separate amendment?
Yes.
Or is that part of?
That's a separate amendment.
Did
That's
you
the
say
one.
1A?
No, that
it's
was
an 8.
Arnett Amendment
Oh,
8,
just
something
Arnett.
truly
Okay.
standalone.
Okay, so that would be Amendment
8.
8
Yes.
and the Arnett Amendment. And would you repeat?
Yes, it's on page 3, I think. Yes, page 3, lines 9 and 10 should be struck, which is subsection B. And that's because it's not relevant to wages. It's the acquisition of property.
Page 3,
Page 3,
lines 9 and 10, so that's 3B.
right. So B would be struck and C would become B.
Okay. So the acquisition of property of a permanent nature for public use and would be struck.
And that was Arnett Amendment 8.
8.
Did we vote on an Amendment 8?
No, we haven't voted on 1A or 8. So I will entertain, first of all, a motion on 1A which is the
So moved.
changes.
Second?
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, okay. And then Amendment 8, the Arnett Amendment.
So moved.
Second?
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay, is that it?
So then there needs to be a motion to recommend favorably on 025.
Not yet.
Oh, no? Not yet. Okay.
Because I would like to know how, if any, changes would impact the fiscal impact note. Because that is a concern for me. And we have heard from staff the impact that this will have. So have any changes to the fiscal impact note been identified? Or are we going to just wait and see?
I am not aware of any changes to the fiscal impact note after all of the amendments have been made. If we want to wait for that for one more meeting, I can talk to Director Dickinson and see if the new thing changes anything.
Well, I would really like to hear from Director Dickinson as well as Director Gerald. Because what's cited in the fiscal note is county procedures. And at least Ms. Dickinson worked in the county and has an intimate knowledge of their operations. How is this going to impact us, is my question. So maybe we can put that on the agenda since we're going to postpone action. But we won't, you're asking this to be postponed until the meeting on the 25th?
I originally wanted it to be on the amend. I was if it had gotten out of committee today, I was going to shoot for it to be on the final city council agenda on the 23rd. If we feel more comfortable as a committee waiting for a updated fiscal impact note or bringing the directors back to talk about the bill after it's been amended, I am okay with that. There is, again, no real, not exactly a ticking clock here, but it is the committee's preference.
Well, I am only one.
Well, no, I'm reading it now, the second paragraph. It doesn't say that the director of finance thinks they'll need 3 new positions, but it certainly implies it. And I know in discussions with the director, then city manager Gerald, that he had indicated that this was a significant burden both for the staff and for contractors. Director Dickinson was worried about the staff impacts. City manager Gerald was worried about any impacts on contractors' willingness to bid on our contracts with this additional burden. I don't know, have any of the amendments we've made reduced any of the reporting burden?
Yes.
Okay.
It had reports, especially regarding the Public Information Act, and the approved deductions had reduced that burden. That was part of the reason why I put those amendments in, to try and work with staff.
Well, may I ask a question? If it's the PIO burden, that falls to the law department, not necessarily to finance or public works, right?
The Public Works, I'd put that in, I think, at the request of Manager Malinoff as well. I have not heard from anyone on the law department on that front, though, on the public information request.
I do believe we have one person in the law department who handles PIO requests, am I correct?
Yeah.
You are correct.
So
Ashley.
this would, Ashley, yes, Ms. Leonard, so this would fall to her plate as an additional responsibility. So that's nothing, that wouldn't impact the Public Works Department and Finance. And I think that's where we had initially talked about the responsibility falling. So I would, not unless you all agree, I don't want to hold this up. I can make my concerns known at the council meeting. But it's up to you. I mean, if you feel the same way I do and you want more information, then we can postpone it till the next
I think
meeting.
we should get, clearly the tenor from the administration, as I read it, is A, this is a big new burden, and B, from the law office, when Mr. Lyles gave us the current procurement thing, he felt this issue was adequately handled in the current procurement processes, and why would we want to make this more explicit, an additional burden? On the other hand, I am a Democrat, and therefore I do support unions, and I support making sure that workers get a fair shake. So, I feel caught between two rocks. I feel like the administration is clearly not really friendly towards this. On the other hand, we're the policymakers.
So, I apologize, Madam
Go
Chair.
ahead, Alderman.
So Director Dickinson, I worked with this. I do believe it reduces the burden. I
And
worked
they
on
said
this
that.
significantly. I do believe this reduces the burden in our office. What she will say, I don't know. She is very good in her job and tends to warn us a lot on implementing new things that have a fiscal impact note. I understand. I want a fiscal manager who errs on the side of caution. And I will not deny this will likely lead to an investment. This will be an investment in the city's future. It will cost us, but I think we will see that return on investment with a better workforce, with better projects that come in closer to being on budget and on time, and we'll be training people that are in our area into a really good paying career to be spending money in our city, boosting our local economies. Director Jarrell, even at the beginning when he would come in and testify in person, he was saying, I'm not against this. He had the concerns on if it would impact overall bidding numbers. There were a couple studies that I had shared with you all before the holiday. I think I sent them to you the December 7th or 8th, showing that when cities and showing that when jurisdictions have implemented prevailing wage or removed prevailing wage, there wasn't any significant impact on total number of bidders. One of the things standing in the way of overall bidding right now is the lack of construction workers and the fact that prevailing wage ordinances have been shown to boost participation in the construction industry, I think opens up for a more long-term sustainability for actually getting these bids in the process. Plus it opens up city projects to union contracting firms that might not be willing to touch our things right now. So I am fine with going forward with it. If you guys want to talk to the city manager one more time or the law department, I'm okay with that. But I am confident that most of the amendments, at least, if not removed their concerns, calmed them significantly.
I'm going to guess that the rest of our colleagues on the council are going to have similar questions, I think, to my questions. And so, whether it's here or there, those questions are going to have to be answered definitively from Ms. Dickinson and Mr. Director Jarrell.
So I've made my dilemma clear. As I said, I'm in favor of unions and fairness to workers. What I would really like to hear from the current city manager and the finance director is that the negative tone that I perceive from this staff report is either not really negative or because of the amendments, their attitude has changed. That would give me a very good feeling of comfort to go forward and vote yes.
All right, in that case, let's delay it one more time, and if we can put on the record that we want Director Dickinson, Director Jarrell, Manager Malinoff, anyone else that we are...
And the law department,
And-
well, they're already here, but,
Y'all want
Ashley Leonard?
and, Ms. Leonard.
Okay.
And we will not, is it Mr. Jones? Yes. We will not ask Mr. Jones to come one more time.
He enjoys watching this.
You have nothing else to do, or you go hang out afterwards downtown.
I made a routine now.
Anyway, I am okay with doing that. We put those final requests on the directors. And
we'll publicize the fact that we're going to have a final discussion
Yeah.
on this. And any of our colleagues who are interested in, learning more about the amendments and hearing from the directors are invited to watch or join us. And it'll be at 1 o'clock at the next meeting.
Yes,
But Alderman, what I have heard from the administration is that you have worked with them. I have the feeling that I hope they're going to come back and change the tone. And if they do that, then we're all going to be happy and put it through.
Well, and you and I talked about the staff reports and how we could improve on
Yes.
staff reports.
And I suspect we might talk about that a little bit tomorrow.
Maybe tomorrow.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'll entertain a motion to postpone action on 02522.
so moved.
Second?
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay. And I think
That finishes.
we have exhausted our agenda. I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you very much. Meeting's adjourned.
Now, have you done your homework for tomorrow?